This video will deal with sales strategies and strategic advantage. Let's start by looking at the role of the sales force. The sales team play an important role in developing effective sales strategies, which yield the highest profitability for organizations. It's the sales team who are at the cutting phase here. This is the connection between the organization and the outside world. It's the sales team who make the connection between the organization and the customers. In fact, they find the customers. They find leads that they then convert into customers and make sales. So it's a process of moving people who perhaps had not thought about the product or were not that keen on the product, moving those people over to become potential buyers. So it's the Salesforce team who are responsible for this, and therefore it's the Salesforce team who are responsible, at least partially responsible, for the profitability of the organizations. They are responsible for the revenue side of the balance sheet. The cost side will be looked after by internal management, who will look after the costs of the premises, the cost of the equipment, and so on. But the sales is the responsibility of the marketing department and the sales force. Organization employs different strategies to manage the sales force. For example, the organizations don't have to use the same strategies with their sales force. It depends on the nature of the product, depends on the nature of the business and of the market. But for example, Avon employs sales reps to communicate face-to-face with customers. Avon ladies will visit homes and will discuss the products as and where is convenient. They will make face-to-face contact. And that's one way of finding customers. But Revlon, by contrast, are in partnership with retail outlets to sell their products. Their consultants take part in store demonstrations and in merchandising, product development, distribution, logistics. So the Revlon reps are much more based within a selling environment, but they will look after their product within that environment. The following are some key considerations concerning the Salesforce design. What is the effectiveness of the sales team compared with other channels? For example, telesales and the internet. So it's always the case that the senior management must be looking towards the effectiveness of the sales team. Are they being deployed correctly? Have they got the right skills and competencies? Have they got the right personalities for the tasks that they have been given? Or could those tasks be done differently? Is it the best way of using resources? And we'll talk about this again in terms of the size of the sales force. But for the moment, a critical approach to this technique should always be adopted. In fact, wise management will have a critical approach towards all the techniques throughout the business to make sure that they're using the right approaches for everything. And having said that, also towards the right approach towards the sales team. The right size of the sales team, the right skills, the right training, the right personalities, the recruitment process, everything should be in place to enable the sales team to have the most effective presence in the marketplace. The different selling approach, selling direct to customers using sales teams, or indirect collaboration and partnerships. Sometimes companies don't have sales teams in situ, sales teams who meet the customers directly. Sometimes they go through other organizations. So they sell the product to another company who then use their sales team to sell that product and other products. For example, an item which is sold on the high street may be sold off to wholesalers who then sell it off to retailers and eventually to the customer. But that's using then the marketing skills of the wholesaler and the marketing skills of the retailer to make their sales, and they don't have a direct sales presence. The company does not have a direct sales presence in the marketplace. It is the retailer who's doing that job. Should the sales team be generalists or have specialist knowledge of the product or service? It depends really on the technicalities of the product. If it's a very advanced product with a lot of electronics and mechanisms, and if it is very, very complicated, then the chances are they're going to need a specialist. Someone who can answer customer queries, who can fix issues and problems if they arise, someone who's seen as approachable by the purchaser and will have confidence in the product by virtue of the fact that they have this link with the salesperson who will give after-sales service should the product go wrong. But sometimes companies may have generalists, a member of the sales team who are responsible for several products, particularly if the products are straightforward and don't need a lot of explanation or a lot of maintenance. They're simply sold on in batch, they're organized into groups and allocated to a salesperson who will look after that group of products. And there's nothing particularly sophisticated or complicated about it. So, as to whether it's a generalist or a specialist is conditional upon the sophistication and the technicality of the product, as well as, of course, the specialist may have specialist knowledge of the market, and the generalist may have just specialist knowledge of the some aspects of the market, but not necessarily all of the market, or maybe confined too much to one area. But a specialist may have expert knowledge of a particular segment in conjunction with the nature of the product, are able to marry up the two sides because they have specialist knowledge of the two ends. Whereas a generalist may have straightforward products, may have a specialist knowledge of some segment of the market, but given they're selling generalist products, that's not a big advantage. So it depends. Sales managers must plan for the following. How many salespeople are required? That's a really tricky question, because the salespeople will say inevitably that they're undermanned, they need more. Whereas the company may see it as the right number, or perhaps there are too many salespeople. It's a balancing act. If there are not enough salespeople, perhaps sales are being lost. They're not fully tapped into the market. They're not using their resources, their full capability, perhaps effectively, because there's not enough of them. On the other hand, if there are too many, it's simply a cost on the organization. So how many salespeople is the right number? And that's a tricky question. Does the team require a global account manager? In other words, should there be someone who's looking after various accounts, various products, and the sales team are reporting directly to that person, who will be able to monitor their effectiveness and oversee what they're doing and how they're going about it, and can bring some sort of consistency between different groups of salespeople, I should say. So does the team need that, or does the team just simply need to go out and make the sales and report to the marketing manager or the sales manager? And what type of sales structure will be implemented? Will they, for example, base themselves on selling geographically, some members of the sales team looking at a particular region or a particular city. Others might look at a different country. Or is it the case that they simply take all the products that the company are producing, and each member of the sales team will try to sell each of those products? And that could be related to what's known as the matrix structure. So there are various approaches that can be taken, and these are the subject matter of other videos in this area as well. So I'm not going to engage in a long discussion of those here. But what is the ideal type of structure that needs to be put in place? How should the sales team be organized? What type of communications and control and coordination techniques will be in place? How should the team be able to contact each other, contact the customer, contact the sales manager or the product manager? How can the sales team efficiently communicate? What's the mechanism? Is it by phone, email, teleconferencing, Skype? What is it? And how is the whole thing controlled? What's the line of responsibility? What's the span of control for the product manager? How many people in the team? And what's the ideal size of a team for a product manager, I should say? What's the ideal size? How many sales representatives should he or she look after? Who will be responsible for key decision making? Who has the authority to say that they will cut the price and give a discount at the point of sale? Is it the salesperson, or is it the product, I keep saying project, the product manager? Is it that person, or is it the marketing manager? Who is it who has the authority to negotiate on price? Or is it retained by the organization? Do the sales team have any discretion about price? So what sort of flexibility is given to the sales team for them to conduct their negotiations? How will the sales team be organized? Who is in charge? How are they allocated to the various segments that have been identified, or the particular areas or regions of the country, or how are they organized? And how are they monitored and controlled after they're sent into the field? So executing a sales force team is an important process and must be approached with thorough research. It's not something that can be done lightly. This has to be calculated and worked out and researched. The sales force team just simply can't be assembled and then expected to deliver miracles. They have to be, first of all, recruited, have the right skills, competencies, the right personality. They should be motivated with the proper motivations in terms of bonuses and remuneration, and they should be looked after in terms of health care and holiday entitlement and sick leave and so on. Then they should be trained in the way of the business and of the product. And finally, be allocated a specific directive to look after a particular segment or a particular geographic area. And then given the tools to do that with terms of communications, reporting back, and support from base, from the product manager or from the sales manager or whoever it is who's in charge. So they're able to get advice, support, comments, directions. They're able to discuss issues with that person. And they should also know the parameters within which they're working. Their ability to negotiate, for example, on price, on quantity, on delivery, on style changes, or whatever's required. And they should also be able to report back any feedback from customers related to the product or what they would like to see, or any innovations in the market that the competitors are bringing out. They should be able to report this back and have appropriate responses given to them so that they're able to continue to do an effective job. The effectiveness of a sales force team design will impact on customer coverage and target groups, cost, efficiency and profitability. So their effectiveness is very important for the organization. This is how the organization makes sales, which generates the sales revenue, which is one side of the balance sheet. The sales revenue is what pays the bills and generates the profits. So it's important that the sales force team are properly designed and organized and supported. And also there's sufficient numbers, and that has to be assessed by senior management and appropriate for the tasks given. In the context of competitive markets, a sales team can help an organization thrive or survive. If the market is competitive, then clearly a good sales team will make all the difference. Of course, if markets are not that competitive, if there are few competitor organizations, then the company will have an easier time and will be able to perhaps get good results by not employing a lot of sales staff or by cutting corners. But the danger with that is that that will lead to customer alienation in the long run and give scope for potential competitors to enter the market and take those customers. So shoddy behavior on the part of management in non-competitive markets can be counterproductive in the long run. And that's all we're going to deal with in terms of the strategic advantage and sales strategies. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.